2008, 19-year-old entrepreneur Daniel Flynn spearheaded a campaign to help eradicate the global water crisis, launching his own brand that capitalised on Australia's love affair with bottled water to fund safe water and sanitation services to hundreds of thousands of people in need. Here to tell us more about his social enterprise, ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome our special guest. Thank you, co-founder and managing director, Daniel Flynn.
Thank you. Awesome. Well, good morning, everybody. How you doing? Awesome. I'm not sure what you were praying about last night, but this is the South Australian prayer breakfast, and my prayer was pretty simple. I was on a flight from Auckland to Sydney, and I had a 2-hour window to get on another flight to Adelaide. And the flight got delayed when it took off, and then it got held in a 1-hour holding pattern over Sydney, and my prayer was, dear God, please, make this plane land. The backup plan was a quick flight to Melbourne and then drive through the night to get here just by 6 a.m. So luckily we didn't have to get to the backup plan. But it is a huge honor to be here this morning and share a story with you that I hope will empower you in your own journey, in your story, whatever that looks like. But I'm actually going to start by taking a little bit of a risk here. And I'm not sure how it's going to go, but I'll let you know in a minute. And I'm going to ask you to turn to the person next to you and say a couple of words. These are 5 words that have become important to me, to our team and organization. Now, the first 2 words are get out. And to help you remember it, I'm going to ask you to, with a little bit of, early morning passion, turn to the person next to you and tell them to get out. All right. All right. Now, the next 3 words are also important. I need you to turn to the person on the other side that maybe you didn't turn to first. I need you to say the next 3 words, which is, and stay out. Go. Now, I realize that's a confronting little statement, get out and stay out. I'm going to come back to its importance in a minute. But I became a dad 3 years ago, and people said to me before becoming a dad that it's going to change your life. And I didn't quite believe it. So there's a good laugh there. I will just enjoy that. To be honest, I'd actually promised myself to never become that dad. Now, you may actually be that dad, or you may know of that dad, but they're the ones you meet and they say they have a child, and then without you requesting it, they pull their phone out and they run you through a slideshow of their child and how their child is the most gifted kid in the world. And I thought to myself, I won't do that when I grow up. Anyway, then we had our son, Jed. And Jed has, he's changed everything for us. And this isn't a joke, but he's literally probably the most gifted, most gifted child in the world. And there's proof to this. And we knew it day 2 at the hospital. So day 2 at the hospital, our son, Jedediah, he started smiling. And I was like, I knew it. And it was a big smile, and the midwife was trying to explain to me that it wasn't a smile, and she was explaining that this is what happens when a baby has gas or wind, or I was like, with respect, I know my own son, and this photo's taken week 1. Who thinks that's a smile? 3 hands. I love the thought. I love the thought that we're not born into this world understanding how the system works. I love that we're not born in understanding what's impossible and what's possible. We learn that stuff. And as a society, we are sometimes pretty good at teaching it. Here are the boundaries. We must stay within them. You can go a little bit outside it, but not too far. When you are raising a child, it can be quite confronting. Jed has a lot of enthusiasm. And I was talking to my mum. I said, Mum, what was I like as a kid? She said, well, let me put it this way. My mum is very polite. She said, Daniel, every morning you would wake up and you would test that all the boundaries were still the same. That is my mother's lovely way of saying what you're thinking. Boundaries are important, but our world needs change. The things that move you and I, the things that we are passionate about, the dreams that we see that are maybe not yet a reality, they are important, and they may require each of us to push our own boundaries, our own comfort levels. And I need to take you to the first moment in 2008, which was one moment that changed my whole trajectory. It was literally sitting in front of my computer doing some research for a university assignment. And I was sitting there and I read a number that said 900 million people in our world still don't have access to clean water. I'd grown up sponsoring a child through World Vision, which to me was a good thing. And if I'm really honest with you, I sort of thought I'd ticked a box. I'd done something. Now I was at university focusing on my future, my career. I actually wanted to build buildings, I thought. I turned up to my first lecture on concrete. And the lecturer said from the podium, welcome to the semester of concrete. And it wasn't a joke. And I picked the wrong course. But there I was at university thinking my life was going in a completely different direction. And I find myself sitting here reading statistics that are shocking. But probably more shocking were the individual stories of children as young as 4 and 5 walking to collect water for themselves, for their family. And I have this one moment where I'm sitting there and I'm crying. And I'm crying because I'm thinking, well, what if that story was me? My sisters Jess and Mel, I love them, they're awesome. But I thought, imagine that. Imagine losing them to waterborne disease, a reality that other young people go through. How would I process that it was the water that we were getting that killed them? And at 19, I knew that that wasn't my story, but the fact that it was some other young person's story. In our world, it moved me, and I know in this room we've been moved before, but it also left me sitting there feeling a little bit, maybe overwhelmed. Overwhelmed when we hear statistics like 800 million people don't have clean water. You can often wonder, well, what difference can I really make to a problem that big? I really believe that ideas can change the world. And ideas in their kind of formation can be so simple and yet so hard to execute. The idea was in 2008, while 900 million people did not have access to clean water, we also had a $50 billion global bottled water industry, which today is $140 billion. Now I need a show of hands, and I personally think bottled water is the silliest product on the planet. And I'd ask you to join me by raising your hand if you agree with that statement, that it's a little bit silly, because we get good tap water, good, just checking. Now the next question is important. Can you raise your hand if you've ever bought a bottle? No, I like that moment because it's like, oh, bottled water is silly. I'm silly. We shouldn't be doing it. But to me, bottled water is like this mirror to society, and its reflection isn't beautiful. We value convenience, and in the same world that has extreme poverty, we have extreme and excess consumerism. In 2008, this was an idea about launching a brand of water that would fund water projects. I think the bigger idea was around combining the consumer power we have as individuals and together making a bigger impact. And it's interesting, we just launched in New Zealand 10 weeks ago. And we actually didn't launch Thank You Water in New Zealand. We launched one of our new product ranges, the body care, and as a brand we are evolving on and on and on as we go, but water was the starting point. And I'll never forget the moment I shared it with Jared, who I'd known since we were 5, and my girlfriend Justine. They both loved the idea and they both said that they were in. And I thought, brilliant. There's probably a book somewhere that says, don't get into business with your girlfriend and your best mate. But we did it, and Justine and I are now married, and we work together. And that should get a round of applause. And we've grown up believing this idea that we could change the world. And when I say we, I don't mean three of us. I mean we, the consumer. Jared's first question was, bro, how do you start a bottled water company? And I was like, I don't know. I was studying, concrete, and I'm like, I don't know. And so we literally, we Googled how to start a water company. And Google was good to us, said you need a bottle in a factory, so we thought, cool. And we met with factories, and if you want a visual picture or if you know our story, we would wear our parents' suits to meetings, and as we came in the car park, we'd always take the P plates down from the window. We didn't want to look too young, and we'd say we're going to change the world. And honestly, it was pretty overwhelming in those first few meetings because people said, you're up against the biggest beverage company in the world. It's a tough market, and we said this will change everything. And I mean, we got a few funny questions, like, can you call a brand or a product thank you? We were like, we're not too sure. Someone called their product Apple, and it sort of worked. And if you've ever bought our product before, you'll notice that thank you's trademarked. There's a little TM there, and we think that's pretty special. In fact, we trademarked it because I had a friend who just finished law school, and I asked him, hey, how does the whole thing work? And I'm not sure how good this advice was, but he said, if no one's ever put a TM next to the word before, you can just put a TM there. So that's how we trademark thank you. We just put it on the bottle. About 6 years later, we got it registered with the good people at the trademarks office. But the point is, we didn't really know what we were doing. and that's a bad thing, but maybe it was a good thing. Because I know we sat in rooms and we asked for things that maybe you shouldn't ask for. The 5th factory manager we presented to, he goes, I love the vision, and he says, I'm going to back it. And we were like, wow, what does that mean? And he said he'd make our product for us. He said, then you go and sell it, and then you just pay me the cost of goods when you can. We thought, well, that sounds good. Turns out it's really good. That was the first person to back the vision. The second was the CEO of Visi. We met with Visi, and they donated 30,000 bottles as a one-off donation. And then I remember walking in the doors of the largest private distributor in our country. They work for brands like Lipton Iced Tea and Red Bull. And our factory manager had said, and he wasn't being cruel, he said, you won't get in. They work with the biggest brands in the world. The way it works is you start small and you prove your model. And then you work your way up. Maybe one day a group like that will be interested. And when he gave us that advice, we weren't discouraged. We just thought, fair enough. Maybe we don't pitch. But since we'd booked the meeting, we thought, well, let's turn up. We're not going to get the deal, but we might learn something. And we did, in fact, learn something. Because in that meeting, the owner, this is our first sales pitch. He says, cool, this is a great concept. He said, I'm going to take 50,000 units from you. How quick can you get it to me? Now, when he said that, there was an awkward pause. And then I said, oh, give us about 3 weeks. And he was like, wow, that's quick. And I was like, we're pretty quick at Thank You Water. And I called the factory, and I tell you, I'm like, we got the deal. He's like, what? Yeah, 50,000 units. He's like, wow. I said, and we have 3 weeks to deliver it. He's like, did they say that? I was like, oh, nah, we did. Now, he said some words that cannot be repeated at any breakfast. At Thank You, we love this idea. Simply that impossibility is someone's opinion, not a fact. I grew up hearing that all things were possible. An environment where you could dream dreams and where mum and dad would just say, go for it. This, for us, landing that deal was a moment where we realized we were told it would be impossible, but we got in. Now in life, some things are impossible. like 3-week manufacturing lead times. But we hold on to this at Thank You, and it has helped build what we do. But the bit I didn't sign up for, to be honest, was when we launched, there was an issue with the label. When we called the factory, we said, hey, what happened? What's wrong with this? What's happened? And he said, I'm so sorry, the quality control guy was away when we ran your product. I thought, is that even legal? And we called up the distributor and said we needed to get the product back. He explained what back meant. He said, that's called a product recall. You're in 3 states already. This ends brands. You haven't even begun. And our launch was a false start. We got product back and we relaunched. We built up after 1 year to 350 customers. And then our factory, who promised the world, didn't keep up with supply. Over 5 weeks, they didn't supply product. And in 5 weeks, we lost 300 of our 350 customers. A year in, it was like the dream had come crashing down. We kept going because there were 2 other retailers that had looked at our idea, and we thought, if one say yes, this will change everything. We'd found a new factory. A new distribution company in Sydney. Now, they said you'll be in 2,000 stores in month 1. And if you're into numbers in the room, like 2,000 times anything is awesome. We thought this is going to take off. But in our relaunch, they went into liquidation. Then the 2 retailers came back saying no. And that was a discouraging moment, but probably more discouraging when they both came out with their own bottle of water that went to funding water projects. We'd met with one of the big supermarkets. And we don't name and shame. We don't say red or green. But we met with one of them. And the guy said, I love your passion and I love your idea, but. And I need to pause there because I think in this room, it doesn't matter how young or senior you are, but I reckon most of us have been told, yeah, I love your idea, love your passion, but. And then people are very quick with the realistic facts that follow. And his realistic facts for our story were, you're up against brands who are investing 3 to 5 million in launches. He's like, we don't even have the shelf space. I'm like, oh, you've got a whole supermarket. It doesn't, yeah, it's a big game, it turns out. He said, you don't have the money. We said, we've got Facebook. He's like, yeah, it's not enough. That was pitch 1. We persisted for 12 months. We are now 3 years into our journey. 3 years, and he says the best sentence I've ever heard, congratulations, you're in national range every store. 3 years of setbacks and knockbacks, and that was such a great moment. And as we got product ready, I put a call through, and I'll never forget it because I needed to check order date and the actual order size. But when I made that phone call 3 years in, a new person picked up the phone and said, what's thank you order? I said, I'll call you back. I called the old guy who'd moved categories in the supermarket and I said, what's happened? He goes, oh, we move a bit, but don't worry, you've got your national ranging commitment, call him back. And I did. Says, Daniel from Thank You, and we're in, and I need to, we've got product, when do we deliver it? And he said, I'll stop you right there. I've got the big brands, I've got my own brand, I don't need your water. So we have a commitment. He goes, yeah, it doesn't stand. It's with the old category manager. I remember hanging up the phone that day and I was crying because I was upset, I was angry, but I also felt like such a failure. Because I was the kid out the front saying the next one, the next one, the next one. We had volunteered for 3 years working between 35 to 50 hours a week to get through uni and pay rent. We worked night jobs and weekend jobs. Jared and I were traffic controllers and people that hold the stop-slow bat. That's what we did. Justine was a nanny, and for 3 years it was like this whole thing is not working, and people are like, well, hang on a second. How did you keep going? Why did you keep going? I had this opportunity a while back to present to some 9-year-old students. There's about 2,000 of them in a room, and the talk was on purpose. And I was reminded of maybe a doll that we used to play with, and it has a weight at the bottom, and you knock it over and it bounces up again and again and again and again. Who remembers that? Anyone still play with them? One guy, legend. When we know why we do what we do, that purpose that drives us, I think that is what we need to get up again and again. And I think our purpose and why comes from moments. And as a society, we haven't done a good job at valuing moments. We say things like, wow, I just got caught up in the moment. Or I'll be there in a moment, which means a long time. But I'm a believer that moments can change everything. And I'm here because of a moment at 19 years old in front of my computer crying. And you could say, yeah, but it was just a moment. It was. It was one of many. And I think when we reflect over our life at moments, key important moments, and we piece them together, it helps us understand who we are and maybe what we're here for. This was another moment. Met Vianney at the age of 12. This is the water he used to collect every day, and we were on a trip, a country called Burundi, 5th poorest country in the world, with one of our project partners, World Vision. And we were there with him, and for our team, this was a moment to see the realities of what happens to a community when they get access to sustainable, life-giving water. It was a moment for our team. It was a moment for me. I think one of the challenges is life is so busy, so cluttered. Our news feeds are so full. Sometimes we don't take enough time to sit, to wait, to pray, to think. You know, we can have moments even in a room like this. You could be up the back and not listening to what's happening up the front and still have a moment. And I know that because one of my moments that got me here and keeps me going every day was when I was 19 years old. I was in a service at the back of the room. It was a church service, and I will be honest with you, I wasn't listening to the person up the front, which is probably not the point. But I was having a little bit of an argument with myself. How will we get money to launch this water thing? There are quotes of upwards of $250,000. We don't have experience. Everyone we meet with business people. We're like, here's what we want to do. And they'd say, where are you going to get the money from? And I was thinking, that's why we're meeting with you. It seems so impossible. And in this moment, I said, God, if I'm meant to do this water thing, can you give me a sign, something? Can you write it on the wall? Daniel, do the water thing. Now, maybe that was too distracting for the whole room. That didn't happen. But in this little moment of argument, of doubt, of prayer, I see an old Bible sitting down on the floor, and I pick it up. And I open it. And after that little prayer I just prayed, I look down and I read something I hadn't read before. Without flipping the pages, in front of me is a verse in a book called Isaiah 41, and it said, the poor and needy search for water, yet find none. Their tongues are parched with thirst, but I, Lord God, have heard their cry. I'll turn the deserts into springs and the valleys into pools, and I'm at the back of the room and I'm like, who saw that? That moment for me is one of many. So you could say no to me 100 or maybe even 1,000 times, but I'll get up and go again. Because why? Purpose, calling, once we know it. I mean, for me, Jed, he's an amazing kid. He has changed me fundamentally. But when we had him, Graham, who's on our board, who is 79 years young, and he joined our board and he actually said he was going to get skinny jeans. He didn't, so we bought him some for Christmas. But Graham had 50,000 staff, grew a business from about 300 million to 6.7 billion. Amazing, but when we had Jed, he didn't give business advice. He said, you have a son now. Don't let the importance or challenges of this take you away from what's most important. I won't forget that moment. I wonder in this room, what is actually most important? I know we're all busy. Maybe it's just me. But what is most important? For 3 years, every retailer was saying, no, 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 you don't have what it takes. And thank you, we love this thought. Who says you have to do things the way they've always been done before? And I understand that may seem a little disrespectful. It isn't. We have so much to learn from experience. I learn so much every week from Graham, from mentors, from wisdom even in this room. But sometimes we have to also ask the question, well, what if there was another way? And I believe that when we have that foundation strong, knowing why we do what we do, for people in this room, family, faith, cause, the drivers, when we know that and hold on to that, I think we can't just get up again. I actually think we'll be prepared to do things that maybe the world's never seen before. And that happened at year 3 when we launched a little video on YouTube where we said, hey everyone, for 3 years we haven't been able to get the water into big retailers, and 2 weeks from today we booked a meeting with 7-Eleven Australia. Now up the east coast of Australia, they are the largest convenience chain and petrol chain, and we asked people to upload a post onto their Facebook wall and say, 7-Eleven, if you stock thank you water, I'd buy it. Now when we launched it, people were like, you can't do that. That's ambush marketing. And I was like, oh, it's more pre-awareness. Now this is a clip. This is what happened. This is what people uploaded onto the 7-Eleven Facebook wall. So check this out.
Okay, let's get down to business.
Hey guys, Jules Lund here from Getaway.
Hi, I'm Patricia Santiago.
Hi, my name's Michael.
I'm Kat.
I'm Paul.
Hey guys, I'm John here.
My name is Lucy.
This is Mosaic and Drew.
Vita Adam here.
My name's Rich.
My name's Louis. Christine Gaia. Christopher Wayne.
My name's Rudy.
Joanna.
Hello.
Tia.
Teresa.
Hey, Debbie.
Ross.
Daniel.
It's Craig and Holy.
I love thank you water.
Where's your thank you water?
We love thank you water.
7-Eleven, please stop thank you water.
7-Eleven, stop thank you water. I'll get Daddy to buy it.
Thank you water, thank you water.
If you stocked it, I would buy it.
I would definitely buy it.
I'd buy it.
I would buy it.
I would definitely buy them.
Everybody look to the left. Everybody look to the right. Can you see that we'll pay for it tonight? 7-Eleven, thank you.
This goes on and on. It was awesome. And thank you. You know, I often think that money will change everything. If we just had money. I actually think people change everything. This was an example of people coming together around an idea so impossible that it might just work. And 7-Eleven, well, overwhelming media, social media support, they backed it and said yes. Within a few weeks, product was on the shelf and we were outselling brands like Evian, Coolridge. I love that Evian's naive backwards, but anyway, so Evian, Coolridge, big brands. And it was starting to take off, so we spent the next 2 years developing a bigger idea, because while people need access to clean water, we understand that issues go deeper, go broader, and we developed a food range where all profit would fund food programs. And then a body care range, and washers, lotions, and sanitizers that will fund health and sanitation. During the development of this, we developed a first in the product space called Track Your Impact, where every product has its own unique tracker code, and you type it into our website, and you can sign up, and we'll send you final field reports, photo proof that the program exists. And this was a massive project, a collaboration from our in-field partners who are the heroes of the work we do, to our manufacturers who are like, oh yep, so you just want an individual code on like every batch, like every 100,000 or so? We're like, sort of, but more every bottle. We came together around this idea and people said to us, you guys are crazy, and not in a good way. For 5 years, we couldn't get our one bottle of water into the 2 major supermarkets in the country. We had the support of some IGAs and Richies and Drakes, and that was amazing, but we needed one of the big 2 to get the scale, to get the volume, to get the pricing. That was a project, and we couldn't get them. So after 5 years of not getting them, people said, well, if you can't get one product in, how are you gonna get all these new ones in? And thank you, we love this thought that to get a result, maybe the world the industry, our team. To get a result the world's never got before, we need to be prepared to do things that maybe the world hasn't seen before. And that happened the day we launched a little video on YouTube that we called the Coles and Woolworths campaign. Now one media group on the phone is like, you can't put the two biggest supermarkets who hate each other in the same sentence. And my awkward answer was, Wesley, our graphic designer, he didn't find it too hard. He just sort of did it, and people sung and they danced and they rapped and people backed it. And then we may have, if you know our story, we may have flown this from a helicopter. Coles, thank you for changing the world, in brackets if you say yes. Flew it over Melbourne, ran the head office for half an hour. And in fairness, Woolies got one too. But my favorite part of the day was Peter and Jeff, the pilots, because they flew for free. And I actually reckon that speaks to that little part in every single one of us, that we want to and we can use what's in our hand to make a difference bigger than just us. 5 hours after the meeting at Coles and 3 hours after Woolworths, we had national ranging. This broke every industry record, no laws, but a lot of just conventions, and product hit the shelf and sales grew. We've just had another round of funding go out and $6.1 million has been raised. And as exciting as that is, we feel like there is so much further to go. Turns out competing against some of the biggest brands in the world is a little bit of a full-time job. We have 55 people working day in, day out to compete and to fight for shelf space. And that is all made possible by people who back it every day in their weekly shop. To date, through our partners, together we've helped impact over 785,000 people, and the importance of that number isn't found in the size of it, but the fact that every number represents a person, and every person has a story. And every story and every person is important. And if the work we're doing in this room is even just for one other, and that is remarkable and important work. And thank you because of the one and because of the many. We believe that this could and should go further. And we dream dreams like, what if this could work in other countries? We're not huge on market research, but we figured that people in America and New Zealand wash their hands as well. So maybe the hand wash will work. And we talked about launching in other countries, and people said to us, but where are you going to get your funding from? See, our business model is flawed. We give our profit. We have no shareholders and no investors, so, with a business hat on, scaling it is a little bit difficult. But to solve our great scalability issue, we launched a little video on YouTube. And the video explained this. I'd spent 2 years writing a book, and the book was titled Chapter 1. So it's a simple book. It's the first chapter of our story, and 100% of the profit from Chapter 1, the book, will fund Chapter 2, the future. In this video, we said, buy the book, fund the future. And the future is us going to New Zealand and other categories. And as we talked in there, I also addressed the point that in Australia, the best-selling book is 5,000 copies. They'd be lucky to make about $50,000 profit. And so in theory, books don't make much money anymore. And that's why we launched Chapter 1 with a pay what you want price, no retail price. We said to people, just pay what you want. And the retailer was like, what? How does it work? We said, well, someone would walk up to the counter and you just ask them how much they want to pay, and then they pay it. And they said, no, the barcode's linked to the system and you can't. But our retail partner, LS Travel, Relay, Newslink and Watermark, they said, cool, we'll try this thing the world hasn't seen before to get a result the world hasn't. They're like, we'll give it a crack. And they did. And I love that. I love that so much. My favorite part of the launch video was this, when I turned to Jared, I said, Jared, how many books do we have to raise to raise $1.2 million, which was our target? I'm like, how many books do we have to sell? And he's like, I don't know. Because it's pay what you want. He goes, I don't know if we need 800 or 8,000, but I ordered 80,000 just in case. We turned to the 4 shipping containers and we said, wow, that's a lot of books, Australia. If you back it, we'll pack it. We'll stay in this warehouse packing books until one day we've raised that money. One thing we've learned at Thank You is you can have an idea and a dream, but you need to go all in. Even if you forgot to check if the place had air conditioning or not. But we were all in, and if you think packing books is fun, it turns out it's not that much fun. But we packed a lot of books, and in the first 2 hours, the book went pretty well. At the launch, we raised $360,000, and within 28 days, we hadn't hit our 1.2 million target. We'd hit $1.44 million. Today, the book stands over 2.4 million raised, and it keeps going, growing, and selling, and opening doors all around the world. In week 3, it was purchased by a guy who our team look up to as a marketer. If you're in marketing, you've probably heard the name Seth Godin. He's written 19 New York Times bestsellers, and week 3, we had an order from him, and so I wrote fan mail in his book. Dear Seth, love what you do. A couple months later, Jared and I find myself sitting in his lounge room in New York as he's talking about ideas and how we could change this and do that, and I was like, wow, this book has opened doors. But the book has raised a lot of money. Now, some people, I'll be honest, did pay 5 cents. We have their addresses. The most paid was $5,000 in Auckland, then $7,500, $10,000 4 weeks ago at an event, no pressure. And the most paid, well, she's a lady who only used her first name and put an online order through for $50,000. And I wrote back, are you sure? Do you want another one? I didn't say that. Now the book, trust me, is not that good. But the idea that we together could come together to make something happen bigger than all of us, well, that's an important idea, not just for Thank You, but for many, many, many missions and visions in this room. My favorite story, though, is actually a South Australian boy named Landon. His mum wrote to us, he was 10 years old, and he bought a copy of chapter 1. $20 is what he paid. He was returning plastic and getting it recycled, and he was saving up, and he gave his copy to his principal, as he thought his principal should change the world, and then to his teacher and his best mate. His mum wrote to us at book number 4. The latest update, Landon was up to book number 18. No pressure. I love that Thank You is a collection of people. Some 50,000, others $20, a couple of people at 5 cents. But using what's in their hand to take an idea further, and that's what happened. We launched into the baby category, and then literally 10 weeks ago into New Zealand. New Zealand has taken off. In our first few weeks, we'd hit a #1 hand wash, and that had taken us in Australia years to get to. Right now here in Australia, we've got the #1, 2, and #4 hand wash, and this is up against big brands, and on paper this shouldn't work, but people, well, we can change stuff. The book retailers who weren't too sure, we ended up winning the Innovation Award, and I was at the award night and couldn't believe it when the head of the company stands up and he said, chapter 1 didn't just work. He goes, it outsold every business book launch and was second only to our Harry Potter launch week. I thought, I haven't read Harry Potter, but that's awesome. And the book has this simple message behind it: you have the power to change stuff. And my mum is a primary school teacher, and she was not up for the word stuff, big on the book. It's not a good descriptive word, and our students weren't allowed to say it. But we got talking, and mum's approved it. And it says stuff because the truth is, our stuff, individually, as families, as organizations, our stuff does look different. But we can change things. And this is a story of change. I think on this journey, it's interesting because as we get bigger, the risks get bigger, the challenges get bigger. The illusion of microphones and stages and books is that person's got it all together, and it's tough for me. It's tough for us. I honestly think that in our 10-year journey, we right now are going through probably the hardest season we've ever been through. There are some challenges, and flying back to Melbourne today and we're working through it all. It is challenging. It is stretching. And it has me on my knees many days in thanks and little prayers like, help. But just because something is hard doesn't mean it's not important, and doesn't mean we shouldn't keep going again and again and again. I honestly think, though, what stops us, even myself, from wanting to change stuff is this one word, which is fear. And they say it's the fear of failure that's killed more dreams than failure itself. You know, the reason I said at the beginning, get out and stay out, as confronting as that was, the purpose was I once saw a circle pop up on Facebook and it said, this represents your comfort zone. But out here is where the magic happens. So the post read. Comfort zone, the great challenge, all of us, isn't just to get out once. We've all done that. But it's the courage to get out and to stay out. And for me, for us, our team, this is a journey of continually stretching outside of our comfort zone. Why? We know why we do what we do. We know the impact of the work we have, and we must keep going. We must keep pushing ourselves. But what stops us getting out and staying out, I think, is fear, because what if we fail? What if I fail? And I think fear is a really interesting, quite personal thing. You know, in year 10 and 11 at school, I said, I'll never do public speaking. And I said that because I had a really strong lisp. And I'm annoyed with the person that came up with the term lisp to describe a lisp. I was afraid to get up in front of more than 2 or 3 people, because what if I messed up my words? And what if they didn't come out right? And even now, as I wrote about the lisp in the book, I mean, even just sharing it then, now I'm thinking, are they listening for it? Pushing past that, getting out of our comfort zone, that is where truly remarkable things happen. For us, Thank You has gone further than we ever thought it would. And as a kid who literally was so afraid of speaking in public forums, I look at the journey that's been laid out in front of us. This moment last year, I was not speaking, but I was in the audience of a conference, and the organizers came up and said, you didn't get back to our email. I said, I'm so sorry, I was traveling. I said, that's okay, but tomorrow morning, President Obama wants to interview you on the live stream. Are you up for it? I said, what? Well, sorry? And this happened. He interviewed for 25 minutes, 3 young people around the world. If you're wondering, were they nervous? Ooh. When the Secret Service came in and they locked down the room, we thought, this is over the top. He asked questions for 25 minutes, and questions like, when's this coming to America? I'm like, oh, good question. We're launching in New Zealand maybe one day. At the end, I gave him a little box that had a hand wash in it. He said, oh, good, Michelle, the kids know we wash our hands. This will be great. I thought, of course you do. We all wash our hands. I am in awe of where this has taken Thank You, but the purpose of being here this morning, well, I think it challenges me still. What if we could each live and do remarkable things? Once I said at a conference, what if we could each do something remarkable? And a guy at the back yells out, I'm going to quit my job. And the CEO up the front was like, no, that's not the point of the session. But so often we think to do these remarkable things or to quit our job and do something and build something somewhere, and that may be someone's story. But over this journey, I have seen so many remarkable people and stories. From Peter and Jeff, the pilots who used their profession and what was in their hand to make an impact bigger than them. From Landon. From a speaker at a conference once, at a breakfast in fact in Melbourne, who was speaking, and this dad walked up to him and he said, oh, I reckon my son might do something like you one day. Could he do work experience with you? The speaker said, oh, I haven't had a lot of that, but yep, I'll get back to you. And he ended up agreeing to it, and a 15-year-old boy followed that CEO around for a week. And that CEO was last year's speaker, George Savides. And I was the 15-year-old boy who got to follow him around. And him saying yes was remarkable, and I'm sure I was annoying. I mean, he said in meetings, he talked in hundreds of millions. And I was like, wow. I had a mind-stretching moment, but I'm so grateful for moments like that, where people with more experience. In fact, when media hit us one day and got very negative, and it was a really hard moment. It felt unfair and it was hard, but someone in this room, Jim Costello, called me out of the blue, and that was a huge honor. And he encouraged me. He said, you can do it. I believe in you. And that, I don't think we should underestimate simple moments that have great significance. I read a quote the other day and I posted it on Instagram. And it was a quote that said, do your dreams change our world or just yours? And as I think about that, I'm looking at our journey. To be honest, to cut through in markets that are so tough, it is hard. I need to show you something. When I say get out and stay out of your comfort zone, we do that a lot at Thank You. This was another moment where we printed the book and everyone thought we got it wrong. You printed it the wrong way. We said, no, we haven't. We did our research. There's no bestseller written in this format. They're written that way, not that way. And we thought, well, that's an opportunity. And so we changed it. And when I was asked, how did you change the convention of books? My answer was, well, we just hit rotate on the print file. That's it. Now, I don't know what your print file looks like, but that didn't cost us any money. We just changed it. And the purpose behind it was simple. That book read in public is invisible. That book read in public just cut through, because what are you doing? But we took a risk that you'd never read our story because it makes you feel uncomfortable. And therein lay the greatest lesson we'd ever learned. To make ideas and dreams a reality, you've got to get out and you've got to stay out. So do our dreams that we have, do they push us out of our comfort zone? Do they change our world? Or is a dream that just changes yours? This is the prayer breakfast, and I'm challenging myself in this as well. I joked about praying for a flight to land. Well, I hope my prayers don't just change my world, but they change ours. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your morning.